My name is Brian Watkins, and this is a tutorial for creation of the Retirement Investment Calculator, which I use as the 6th module in my basic Excel class. So to get started, let's just, we're going to call this the Retirement Investment Calculator. If you're wise, you will save your work, get the name done, make sure you can find your file. Okay, the purpose of this one is kind of longer. So the spreadsheet, actually this spreadsheet, will collect a number of assumptions regarding future salary, benefits, and rates of return, which will be used to estimate the value of a retirement account, some at a point in the future selected by the user. Okay, was there something in here? Didn't like that. Okay, so we're going to widen this one out to H, okay, and do the same merge, wrap, top align, left justify, pull it down. And this spreadsheet is going to have a lot of columns. Actually, we're going to go all the way out to column L. So let's go to column L, and let's make this probably a 14. Let's use a 14 at the beginning. And we'll adjust row 4 here. Now we'll do our data section. We're going to go only to H, even though our table will go out to L, and I'll show you why in just a second. It has to do with focus on the output that you're going to give to your client. So what we're going to do this time is we're going to, instead of looking at the page in what's called portrait mode, we're going to look at it in landscape mode. And with landscape, it looks like we come right to our border with that 14. Okay? Even though some of our columns will go beyond this, we're going to use them for a certain purpose that I'll show you as we progress here. So our data that we're going to collect in this is rather important, but before we do that, we're going to have today's date, just to signal to your user. We're going to give them a report, and it's going to show the date of the report. This is done by using a function called today, and the function doesn't need any input, but because it's a function, you still use the 2 parentheses. And when I hit enter, it tells me what the date is. And there are different formats I could format the date. I could make it a long date and have it say Wednesday. Let's go back to what, 14? Or I could just use my regular date. Where's my short date? Short date. So we're going to use short date for today, and then we're going to collect the age of our client, the retirement age that the client wants to retire at, how much is the client making right now, how much does the client think anticipated salary increase. Some jobs just pay a cost of living increase. Those of you who are fortunate to complete your accounting degree and get your CPA could probably look at a higher rate of increase, but it all depends on what kind of job you have. And in jobs where you're working for somebody else, where you're not self-employed, you have an annual contribution that you make, and then an annual contribution that your employer makes. And this is becoming increasingly rare. So if you're self-employed, you're obviously going to have 0 employer contribution and 100% employee. Everything's going to come from you. But let's assume the best, and you're with a company that has great benefits. Now we have to look at the expected rate of return on investment. Okay, now that's on investment. That's on the account where you deposit the money that you're saving for your retirement. And most clients will have some money saved before they come to you. If not, we'll just put a 0 there. Okay, now the same rule applies. Today's date, that's a function, so we don't need to name that. We can always call the function quicker than we can type today's date. But we're also going to have a new kind of feature, and we're going to ask a question. And that question is the data complete? Okay, if the data is not complete, we want to make sure that our retirement calculator doesn't throw out numbers that make no sense. So those are our variables for this, and they will be found in your sample test. Okay, I paused that and made sure that I gave you everything in the sample test so that there's no confusion. And remember the rule, you highlight the names and you go over one column. Then we do Control Shift F3. We're going to use our names from the left column. Done. Now we're going to take our named cells, cut them, and paste them. And we're going to start entering our information. So we have today, and then we have current age is going to be 30. Retirement age is 65. The annual salary, let's say we're making $60,000 a year. We have an anticipated salary increase of 3.15%. Our annual employee contribution is going to be, let's see, employee contribution. That comes from the from our table. Looks like 7%, so 0.07. The employer contribution is calculated. The rate of return on the investment, we see 9.5. The original investment balance, 30,000. And is data complete is going to be a calculation we make. So let's take all of our variables, let's center them, let's make sure that the ones that we enter numbers have background color. Okay, this is a function, it doesn't get a background color. This will be a function, and this will be a function. So using the control key, if I hold the control key down and I click on a number of cells, like, oops, sorry, I'm going to escape out and try this again. So if I hold control down, I can click on this, and we can go and do currency format. And it currency formats both of those. And now I hold control down, I click here on the increase, the contribution, the employer contribution, and notice I'm formatting it even before I put in my formula, which is fine, and then the expected rate of return. And I'm going to make all of those percentages. I didn't want the two others to go, but I guess we'll fix that up. This is not the best, working out to be the best shortcut. Okay, so control, click, click, and we'll make those currency again. Alright, so we have everything formatted, and now what we're going to do is prepare a table. And the table is necessary because you have different employer contributions based on the percentage of contribution that the employee makes. Now, I've taught you how to do if statements, and you can see really quick from your sample test that you would have a lot of if statements. Okay, if it's less than 1, or if it's less than 2, less than 3. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to create a lookup table. So let's take these two, we'll merge those so that we can have a title here, and we'll call this the contribution, what is it? Let's do it bold. Contribution percentage table. Okay, and we're going to have an employer contribution and an employee, let's do bold and underline, employee, sorry, that's the employer, that's the employee. And let's go to all of these and center them. And then let's go from our sample test. Okay, looking at the sample test, the employee can contribute, well, let's do one trick first to save a bunch of time. If I highlight, I'm going to have 6 numbers on this side and 6 numbers on that side. And if I highlight all of them and I format them all at once as a percentage, then all I have to do is enter 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And let's center those, and let's put a line down the middle, which I would do by putting a right border on all 5 of those. Boom. So now I've got my border. Let's put a bottom border here so that we get a T. Now the employer is going to be 1, 2.25, 3.5, 4.75, and 5.95. And let's move all of these down. There we go. And this one here is going to be 0, obviously. I have to put the 0 in there, and I will show you why when we do our lookup table. Now all of these centered, there we go. And all of these can be changed by the user. So we put our colored background there. So now let's go over here and let's actually show how this works. The VLOOKUP command, and let me show you another trick here. You see how as soon as the computer, look right there, it knows what you want? If I hit the tab button, I can accept that and it'll fill it right in. That's a great shortcut. The lookup value is your key. And what we're going to do is we're going to change our employer contribution based on an input. And the input's going to be how much we contribute. So our annual contribution, our employee contribution, is the key. Next I do a table. And, oh heavens, let's go back. I want to show you something else here. This table here has a reference that would be G11 colon H16. But I can name my tables as well. So if I define a name for my contribution table and I just show up my contribution underline table. And that table means sheet 1, okay, we're on sheet 1, G11 through H16, G11 through H16, and it helpfully puts in those dollar signs so that if we were to copy our reference to the table around, it wouldn't change. So that makes it easier. I should have done that first. So equals VLOOKUP. As soon as we see what we want there, I hit the tab button, and then my lookup value is the contribution. My table array, now if I hit the F3 key, I can see all my names, and I look right there, contribution table, good. Now the column index number is where my answer is. My key in a VLOOKUP is always in the vertical column number 1. So I could have 10 different columns here and ask for an answer from any one of them, but I'm only looking for the second column because that's all I have. Now the range lookup, this has 2 different kinds of search. Approximate match means the values in the first column have to be ascending order. Very important. If we didn't have an approximate match function, then the only time we would ever get a number out of this table would be if we have exactly 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5%. But you know, in real life, you rarely hit exact numbers. Instead, you want everything up to 1 and everything up to 2. So you have to use an approximate match for this. And since it knows what I want, right here it's got it highlighted, I'll hit the tab and it brings it right in. Now I close this and let's watch it work. 5.95 is returned because my key is 7. 7 falls beyond the 5, so it gives me, oh, we forgot to put in the, here. Let's add the decimal places. There we go. So now we have 2 decimal places. So I'm getting 5.95 because my key value of 7 falls out of that. Now, if I have a key value of 1, obviously I'm going to get 1. And I could have 1.9999. It will still give me 1, even though it rounded up to a 2 there. Until I get above this number, equal to or above. If I hit 2 now it will change to 2.25. And the power of an approximate search is that I can have anything in between. I can have a 2.5 and it'll figure it out. I could even have a 0.5 and it would 0.05 and it would figure out 0.005. Let's try that one. There we go. And it would figure out that, okay, it's not there. That's why it's important to always do an approximate lookup table starting at 0. Because if I didn't have a 0 there, let's just say this number was 1, then I would get an error because it would be lower than the first number in the table. It wouldn't know what to do. So I always start my table like that. Obviously, if I have a negative anything up there, it's going to be an error because I'm below 0. But we can be pretty sure that there's never going to be a negative there. So anything above 5, and it will just keep returning 5.95. But if this were an exact match, again, it would only work if it was exactly 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So you use an exact match when you have somebody's name or you have a number that you know you're going to match exactly. And if I don't feed a valid key to the function, it returns an error. Again, if I put a negative there, it would return an error because I'm outside that function's capability. So I look back at my sample test. I see that my contribution was 7. So we'll leave it at that. Now, is data complete? This is a fun one. This is going to be a very large if statement designed to tell us whether or not we have all the data that we need in order to make this function work. So we're going to teach you the OR function. Okay, the logical test here, if any one of these things is missing, I want to trip my if condition. I don't want to wait until they're all missing. So all missing would use an AND test. AND says every single thing has to be true. This has to be true and that has to be true. But an OR test says I'll return true if any part of my conditions are true. This could be true, or this could be true, or this could be true. OR is done. It's a function, so I'm going to open it up. And now I'm going to go down my list. I'm going to start by clicking on current age. And I'm going to say, is current age equal to a blank? Okay? What we're looking for is people forgetting to put anything in there. I don't care if it's 100 years old or 200. I can sense that there's an error if that says 200. So the first condition is current age blank, comma. Now the second condition is retirement age equal to a blank. And the third one is annual salary equal to a blank. And you see where I'm going here. And we're going to go down each one of these and we're going to say, is it equal to a blank? And we're not limiting to the ones that have colored backgrounds. Obviously, the employer contribution could be a blank just as well. And why it went to that long format or short format, I don't know. So we're going to look for expected rate of return equals blank, comma, original investment balance equals blank. Okay, that's our last one. When we're done, now we close the OR statement. And we close the OR statement with its own parenthesis. So now I put a comma, and you watch right here on the if statement, when I put a comma, the computer knows that what comes next is what it's supposed to do if it's true. Now here's where we mess with your head a bit. If my OR statement is true, that means my data is not complete. So I'm going to return false. If my OR statement is false, meaning that everything has something in it, then my is data complete is true. Okay, now the word false and the word true are actual Excel functions. They're not words, they're functions. And that's going to be valuable because I'm going to close this and hit enter, and now I see true. So now I can use a reference to that cell, which is data complete, as its own logical test. So let's just do that real quick. If is data. I can use the tab to finish all that typing. That's my test because it's either true or false. Get it? It's either true or false. So I can say comma, true, or actually if it's a comma, say a word here, say yes. And if it's false, let's put a word that says no. Okay, so is data complete? What was my error? Yes. Maybe I forgot the parenthesis here. So yes, but if I take that, let's take one of them out. Current age. No, now it's not true. And so what I'm showing you there is that the only test you need is just to refer to that cell. The true or false can come from another cell. Okay, E17. If E17, that works. Why? Because E17 is a test that's itself true or false. Okay, that's enough on that. Now we have a problem. One of the things that you set up with a table is you always have to feed a table a good number. If my number is missing, okay, then my table goes. So let's say right here, if there's some not applicable or NA there, then I'm going to return something. If I have an NA, what I can do is I can take and I can use a formula called an if error. So let's put a, why did it put a -1? Oh, I blanked that out. Let's put that back. There we go. That's the lookup. If I want to protect it against an error, and this is particularly good when you do lookups, I can use a function called if error. And all I do is put if error, and I put the VLOOKUP inside that function. So I go if error, and then I put my parenthesis, and then I go to the end of the function and say comma, and I can put a message in quotes. Okay, and I'll say improper, or just say out of table range. Let's see if that fits. So if I put a negative number here, it says out of table range. It doesn't give me an error, and it says, okay, I'm out of the range. So anything else would work. And that's the only time you'd ever see out of table range. And that's called the if error. And that will save you a lot of grief. If you always back up your VLOOKUPs with an if error, then when you have an error show up, you'll know it's because somebody fed something to the table that the table couldn't digest. So now we have all of our data in. Let's do our summary answer section. And again, we'll go just this far because we're designing some output for our client. So let's put a olive green there, a border. And our summary answer section, if we look at our print, you can see that we're going to have like one page that we can then hand to somebody to show them all of our good work. First thing I'd like to teach you here is I'd like to teach you how to combine things in one long text string. A text string in Excel, you have learned, is something between double quotes. Okay, so if I have something in double quotes, Excel knows that that's a word, that's text. This is text. And it will just put it there, but inside Excel's little brain, it knows that that's text, and it doesn't try to do math with it or anything like that. So we can give messages to our user. And the message we're going to give is, assuming retirement in space, and we're going to close that. Okay, we want that little bit of text to show up first, and then I'm going to use the AND symbol. The AND symbol allows me to put things together. I can put math together with text, but I always need that AND to signal the function that puts them together. So now I want another number. I want the year. I want to know what year it is right now so that I can add something to it. The way I get the year is I use the year function, and I feed the year function the today function. Okay, so let's see what comes out right now. Assuming retirement in 2013. Well, we're not going to retire in 2013, so we have to do some math. So we're going to take this year and we're going to add to it, we're going to add a number that reflects how far in the future we're going to retire. So we're going to retire, if we're going to retire at age 65, then we better add 35 years to whatever we have here. And that's simple. We just take retirement age minus current age. So now we add the number of working years to our year here. Let's try it. Assuming retirement in 2048. Well, that makes sense, because if we're 30 right now and we retire in 35 years, 35 plus 13 is 2048. So let's finish it up. Let's put another "and" there, and now we can put a quote. So whatever comes after the quote is going to type. So let's put a comma after that 2048 and say, with no changes in the estimates provided. Okay, that's just a little protection to you as a professional. If somebody comes along and says, hey, your retirement numbers were bad. So what we've got here is we've got one text string, and in the middle we have a little bit of math that takes this year and then it adds the number of years that your client plans to work. And we have a sentence. Assuming retirement in 2048 with no changes in the estimates provided. Let's bold that, it's important. Now let's do our numbers. And we're going to have beginning investment, and then we're going to have employee, employer, and total contributions, and then we're going to have accumulated earnings. This is how much is piled up in our savings account from our earnings, and then we're going to have our balance at retirement. And we're going to add all these things together, and let's make them all bold. Let's center them all, and we'll take the bottom row and underline those to show that they're headings. Okay, so assuming retirement in 2048 with no changes in the estimates provided, we're going to have some numbers. So what's our beginning investment? Well, now here I'm going to impose a requirement that your spreadsheet shows no data unless the data is complete. So we're going to start by doing an if statement. Is data complete? I just hit the tab and that comes right in. If it's complete, great. Show me the original investment balance. Otherwise, stay blank. 30,000. Let's put a good currency on that. Okay, our employee contributions are going to be the same kind of thing, but we're going to have to finish our detail answer before we get to that. But we're going to use the same kind of logic here. We're going to do if is data complete, and then we're going to have something if true, and then if false we're going to put the double on it. Okay, just be careful. Let's copy that all the way down. Okay, so now all we have to do when we finish our work is come back and change that little formula, and then we're also going to have some check figures underneath. So let's copy that formula down for this check figure, and that check figure. Okay, and we'll come back and work on those in a minute. So now we're going to do a detailed lookup table. Now, I've taught you how to do color to signal what section you're in. Especially helpful when you have very large tables that go multiple pages. So to give you a way to use more information, or more colors rather, let's bold it and underline it, sorry. Detailed answer section, and this one Let's go off this far for now. This one is going to be the dark color of your choice. Okay, so you get to pick it, and it's got to be dark. And why do I want it dark? Because I want to show you, let's just use a really dark blue. And then I'm going to turn my font into a white. So there we go. That's a way for you to have additional colors that you can use. Just use that reverse trick. You don't need to put a thick black border around this because it's already pretty dark. Alright, now we're going to do a big table. It's going to have year, age, the salary. It's going to have your beginning balance. This is your investment account. It's going to have year-to-date earnings. It's going to have year-to-date contributions. Let's shorten that. It's going to have an ending balance. And then off to the side, we're going to create more. We're going to have accumulated earnings, accumulated contributions, end balance, and a check figure. Now what the heck? Let's make sure everything looks good. There we go. We'll just extend that out to show what's going on. Now this is your page border, but what we're going to do is we're going to put a page break right above this, page break, so that your detailed answer section gets on its own page. Alright, these are headings. You know what to do with headings? Bold, underline, and center. Okay, so now we go in and we start filling in our formulas, and the first thing we're going to do, as you learned, is put our 0, but we have to be smart about it. So if is data complete, use the tab to fill it in. If it is complete, I want a 0 there. If it's not complete, I want it blank. I want that 0 centered. So we've got our 0. Now the next thing we've got to do is we're just going to put down a certain number of years, and if you look at your sample test, I believe I tell you, prepare a detailed answer section that begins with year 0. Table must be capable of displaying 60 years of data. So we're going to have 60 numbers here. So the way to get our number, you learned this in the 4th project, is data complete. If it's complete, take the row above me, the cell above me, and add 1 to it. Otherwise, stay blank. Okay, so we're going to center that. And 60 would be 91, I think. So we'll come down here. 91, 60. Perfect. So we've got our numbers now. Okay, our age. Well, you know what the age is. The age is coming right in from the data section. But the age is going to change. So I can't just start it that way. I have to be a little tricky here. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to check my year. I'm going to see if it's blank. If it's blank, I want to stay blank. Otherwise, and this is what I'm going to do for the whole table. I'm just going to now check the year. The year already knows to go blank in the event that data complete turns to false. So I don't need to recreate that test every time. I just need to test the year. Okay, so if it's going to be blank, stay blank. Otherwise, take my current age and add to it the number in the year column just before this one. Okay, why just before? Because that gives me exactly what I want. I want the current age to be the first one. And then when I double click, it goes down. And that way, if I were to change my age, say I'm 40, then I come down here and my numbers have all shifted based on current age. That's a nice little trick you might use someday. So now we're going to look at the salary, and the salary is simple. We're going to do it in 2 parts. Okay. The first part, if, remember, each one, if the year is blank, then stay blank. Otherwise, go get your annual salary. We're going to start by just getting what we're making, right? That's current. Now the next one here, be sure you stay on the same row. So now I'm looking at the row below, equals blank, stay blank. Otherwise, now I have to increase my salary. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to multiply the salary above me times 1 plus the rate of anticipated salary increase for a year. Okay, the 1 carries my principal in, and then the anticipated salary increase times, which is 3.15, will take 3.15% of 60,000, add it to 60,000, and give me 61,890. And now I can just do that all the way down. That's my salary. Okay, so beginning balance. Beginning balance is just going to be the ending balance from year 0. So let's put a 0 up here, and we'll check and say if that is equal to nothing, then nothing. Otherwise, I'm going to take my original investment balance. Now remember, the investment balance is your retirement account. It doesn't have anything to do with how much you make. This is a separate bank account that contains your retirement funds. So there's my ending balance, and then I'm going to go here to my beginning balance and simply say if it's blank, stay blank. Otherwise, go get my ending balance. Okay, so it helps to have a 0 year for that reason. Now my balance is going to change every year based on the ending balance from before. I can't just increase this. I have to add things to it. So I'm going to copy it down. It won't mean anything yet. Now I go to my year-to-date earnings. If my year is blank, stay blank. Otherwise, tell me how much money I made this year. Now, how did I make this money? The earnings is the money that my money made, not me. Okay? My salary is what I make at my job. My earnings here are what come from my investment account. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my investment account and I'm going to multiply that times my expected rate of return on investment. So make a mental note. Earnings has to do with the money that your money made, not with the money that you made. So that was $28.50. That's a good bit of interest for the year. Now my contributions, on the other hand, check the year. Year's blank, stay blank. Otherwise, my contributions are the only thing that depend on how much money I make. So now I'm going to look at my salary, and I'm going to multiply it times not only my contribution, which was 7%, but whatever contribution my employer promises. Move that out of the way, which is the annual employer contribution. So I multiply it times both of those. There we go. That's my year-to-date contribution. Now I can do my ending balance. First, check your year. If it's blank, stay blank. Otherwise, sum up the beginning balance, the year-to-date earnings, and the year-to-date contributions. Okay, that should be pretty straightforward. We're just going to sum them right up, and there you have your new ending balance. So I can take all three of these now, copy them down. I could have done them one at a time. You'll see everything builds up big. That's why we needed those big wide columns. So your ending balance is $34.5 million. And if inflation hits in, maybe that'll get you into a movie someday. Alright, now we want a lookup table so that when we retire we can say how much money is in our account and how much money came from contributions. Well, I can't go to this column and say if I retire at 40 I have this much. I need a running total that I can pick up. So we're going to create two running totals. And the running totals will work just as you've learned before. So let's check the year. If it's blank, stay blank. Otherwise, I want to take this year's contribution, or sorry, this year's earnings. It's accumulated earnings, right? So take this year's earnings and add to it the total from the prior year. Easy enough? That's all you have right there. So now that 2850, next year I'm going to add 3858. I'm going to get this, and so on. Contributions is exactly the same formula. I check the year, but this time instead of looking at the year-to-date earnings, I'm looking at the year-to-date contributions. Contributions, contributions. So don't make the error of picking up the wrong number. And to make a running total, I obviously have to take the cell that's above me. I don't want to take the earnings and mix up two columns. So there's my contribution. And you can see in the first year it's 7770, and then next year I'm going to add 8,000 to it, so I'll have 15, 16 something. There we go, 15, and so on. Okay, my ending balance. My ending balance in the account now is pretty simple, right? Let's take the year, check it. Okay, and if I'm going to do something, what it's going to be my earnings plus my contributions. Don't forget the amount you started with, plus my original investment balance. Did it not come in? I can't see. Hopefully, oh, come on, there we go. It did come in. So for your ending balance in every year, it's the original investment balance plus these two. And since they accumulate, you don't have to take the one above it. Actually, you can't take the one above it because each line is its own. Okay, so you can see that this ending balance and this ending balance need to be the same. So far, so good. Check it down. So your check figure is basically to take one ending balance away from the other. So check my year. My year is blank, stay blank. Otherwise, take my ending balance 1, subtract my ending balance 2, and if it's 0, I'm good to go. Now, where I see zeros here, that's because there's a rounding error. And I have some, if I were to format this as scientific, you would see that decimal point followed by 11 zeros and then 146. I have some little bit of rounding error from the math. Just keep that as a comma format and you should be fine. Okay, what have we done? We've created a table here, and this is a table that we can use to look up values for our report. So let's take our table and very carefully, avoiding this year column. This year column means nothing, right? We want our first column, our key, to be the age, so that when we pick our retirement age of 65 out of this list, we come down here. If you were to pick this column, you would get bad results. So we're going to take our data, starting with age, going all the way across. We can include the check figure or not. It's up to you. I don't think you're ever going to need the check figure, but so now I've got my range. Let's name it. I'm going to call this the detailed retirement table. It's hard to see. Let's just call it the retirement table. Retirement underline table. Okay, and you see it helpfully puts the dollar signs in. Done. So now we can go back here and we can pull things out of our table. So we're going to start by doing an F2, which is an edit command. And we're going to put something right between those two commas, right? Because we want the value if true. So we're going to start typing now our new stuff inside that formula that we kind of left there, so that we can find out how much did we get from our employee. And in order to do that, we should have our total. So we'll leave that. Let's get the total first, and then we'll go to do that. So take you can either do it in the formula bar, or I can do it in F2, and I want to be right in between those two commas. So to get my total contributions, all I have to do is a lookup, VLOOKUP, and I hit the tab that comes in with its open parenthesis, and my key is retirement age. That's my key. My table is retirement table. And my column, okay, this is going to be an interesting one. I want to find out my total contributions. Age is in column 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Column 8 has my total contributions. And then finally, I want this to be an exact match. Exact. Why do I want it exact? Because I'm going to retire on one of these ages. I'm not going to retire at 31.5. And I want to make sure that I collect the right line. Okay, so now I can hit enter. There's my total contributions. So let's make that currency. There we go. Total contributions were 506,000. Now I have something that I can use to split this up. And I'm going to put my cursor right between the commas, and then I'm going to figure out how much of those total came from my employee. So I do that by taking total contributions, okay, which I should probably name. Let's see. Yeah, total contributions would be easier if you name it. Let me take the time out to do that. So name total contributions. Okay. And then we'll name this one accumulated earnings. And retirement balance, just in case we want to use it again someday. So go back to employee and take it over. So now we're starting the value of true, and I want to start with the total contributions. And I'm going to multiply it times a fraction. And the fraction to get my employee contributions is going to be my annual employee contribution rate divided by the sum of my annual employee and my annual employer contribution. And what that will do is, let me pull this down so we can see the whole thing. That will take and attribute only the annual employee contribution portion of total contributions to this whole thing. So let's see if I need one more parenthesis there and then a comma, and I'm good to go. So I have one logical test, value of true, value of false. So it looks like of the 506, 273 came from employee contributions. So we can, well, we could copy it. Let's try that. So we're going to copy the whole thing into employer. And then we're going to go, and this time, instead of annual employee contribution being the numerator, we want the employer contribution to be in the numerator. What did we miss? Oh, I didn't, okay, sorry. So now I do Control X, Control V. Basically I erased my employer. So we'll put a Control V here. Oh, it's not in the memory, so I'll do copy, paste, and what we have to do is change employer. The numerator is the same as your title there. This is employee contributions, so the numerator should be the employee contribution. There we go. Now we've got it right. Okay, now right here I'm going to have this pop up with a text saying check figure. Okay. Let's format that. There we go. And the check figure is going to be whether employee plus employer contributions. So go over 1. If this number plus this number minus total contributions is 0, we're good. And we're good. And this is really a helpful check figure, because if you screw up your fraction and do it the same way twice, that check figure will tell you. Alright, our accumulated earnings. It's another VLOOKUP. And our VLOOKUP key for accumulated earnings is the same as our other key. It's our retirement age. And our table is the same as we've used before. It's our retirement table. And just as we did before, we're going to count over to where our accumulated earnings are. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Column 7 has them. And we want it to be false, an exact match. And we'll close our VLOOKUP there, and that should be our accumulated earnings. Looks like we did pretty well. 3,087,000. Okay, and then the balance at retirement, we'll just put it right in the middle there. Our balance at retirement is our beginning investment plus our total contributions plus our accumulated earnings, and that's the balance in our retirement account as of the retirement year. And I want currency. Okay, and we can check that one, and that's an easy check because we know that we did running totals. So VLOOKUP, and our key again is retirement age. Our table is again the retirement table. Okay, and what we want to see now is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Our ending balance, false. So if our ending balance minus the ending balance we just calculated is 0, we did that right. Great. Okay, so now we've got our calculations done. Let's make our output look good. Let's just check. I'm going to take my retirement age, I'm at 65, and I'm going to wipe it out. Everything goes blank. Okay, what can we do? If we wanted to, we could make this a little smarter. We could say if, and then our test is data complete? If data is complete, we want that there. But otherwise, here's a great opportunity to say, please enter all requested data so that estimates can be provided. It's basically a nice way of saying you left something off. Okay, so now if we put our last piece of data in, this whole sentence changes. How about that? And that's how to make spreadsheets communicate with their users. So right now, if we were to print this page, we'd have a nice little hand them something on nice paper and say, assuming these numbers and assuming these numbers, this is how much you're going to have when you retire. And then obviously the rest of these would be a detailed answer section. And you could put those next to each other and take out what's relevant. One thing you could do here is you could say take these into your page print titles, and you could say rows to repeat at top, and let's do rows to repeat at top. Just basic. I shouldn't have selected them first. Okay, so let's go print titles. Gosh, come on. Print titles. Here we go. Sheet. Rows to repeat at the top are going to be these 3 rows. Let's see what happens if we do that. Oh, and then we need our footer. Custom footer. in the center section, well, left section's fine. Okay, so now if we look at our output, there we go. Yeah, it repeats our column headings so that we can kind of see what's going on. Wonderful. That would be a complete retirement investment calculator. It requires you to understand both kinds of lookups, an approximate lookup and an exact lookup. It shows you how you can use a true-false condition and adopt that in all calculations other than your basic calculation. It also shows you how you can combine text with some math to make it a little more intelligent, to provide some smart output. I think that these are the kind of skills that will really help you in later careers, and if you have any questions, please let me know. You will have 1 hour to complete this in the testing center.